Serious people that have been held at gunpoint/knife point. What were you thinking about in that moment? I was held knife point by my stepdad's brother while camping at a popular rafting spot. It was 11 p.m. and he's pissed drunk screaming about someone taking his bottle. Thought it was my mom, so he held me hostage till he got it back. Cops ended up tasering the beep out of him. I clearly remember thinking about how awful my mom and stepdad were for allowing this to happen. But I was calm. Sick of their speep and ready to go to bed. I was 12 at the time and was barred from ever entering the property again, even though I had done nothing wrong besides almost die. I was held at knife point during a break-in/robbery. They got me out of bed by pulling my hair and holding the blade in the nape of my neck. All I thought was, I'm going to die naked. This sucks. It wasn't my finest moment. My first night away from home at the age of 18. On the steps of my front porch at my first apartment. My Marine buddy has a gun in his face. I'm behind him. He turns around to look at me and gives a "Can you believe this guy?" smirk. I'm thinking, I'm going to die because of this jarhead. Did you die? My thoughts were weirdly flat and calm. First, I absolutely did not want to be shot in the face because I knew it would destroy my mother seeing me like that. Second was that I hoped it wouldn't hurt. Last was just a resigned, almost irritated feeling that it was happening to me. It was a little bit mutual. I fired a guy. Smart. Purdue U graduate. Mechanical engineer. But he was a weirdo and groped a rep from our distributor. So that was that. He gathers his stuff. Storms out. Burns rubber. Not 10 minutes later we hear screeching tires. Me and an old Vietnam vet who worked for me went to the two doors. About 100 feet apart. Mr. Engineer was flying out of his truck, shotgun in hand. We both are concealed carriers, so we both drew on him. He was a little bit screwed then because he was flanked. Best he could do was shoot one of us, then be dead. Another employee called the cops. When they arrived they disarmed and cuffed all of us. Then watched the surveillance footage. He ended up serving like 18 months. It was a now ex-boyfriend. Boyfriend at the time. My thought at the time. Here we go again. He was seriously threatening to shoot me in the head, but I was so sick of his speep that I wasn't even scared. Just fed up. I told him if he was going to do it then just get it over with, otherwise I had more important things to do. He then turned the gun on himself. I told him I didn't want his blood and brains all over my new white sweater, and I got up and walked out. He decided to cut me off on an icy street at night. I flipped him the bird. I pulled into the parking lot and parked to start carrying my bags in. He made the block and pulled in beside me. I had just turned when I saw him level a pistol over the doorframe. I stood completely still. He started talking speep about me flipping the finger. It was 11:30 at night and about 18 degrees on an army base. I never thought I would see this guy again. And he wanted to talk with a gun on me. Half my mind was remembering each word he said. What he looked like. What he sounded like, and the other half was wondering how much time it would take to get my rifle from behind the seat. He kept the gun on me and talked for 10 minutes. Backed out and left. I was pretty warm by then and sweating. It turned into a cold chill as soon as he turned the corner. When my workplace was robbed at gunpoint, I was worried about making sure I didn't do anything that got the younger guy working with me shot. He had just told me his girlfriend was pregnant and how happy he was. It wasn't that the fun was frightening. It's that I won't risk getting myself or someone else hurt over something insurance covers. I was a kid when my stepdad pointed a 12 gauge at me. I was trying to stop him from hurting my mom even more than he had. He said if I get in the way again he'd pull the trigger. Then he racked a shell. I was so scared I pissed myself. I won't ever forget the look in his eye. I 100% believe he meant what he said. Would she really stab me? And would I shoot to stop her? She would and did. I saw it coming but figured I'd be okay and I didn't want to splatter her brains over an emotional response. Thankfully my sappy stopped most of the blade and she only got about 1/4 of it into my chest. Bled a bit but didn't even notice until it was long over and we had turned her husband over to the local authorities for rape of a minor, his niece. She got a big hard-knuckled glove punch in the face. First and only time I punched a woman but didn't want to give her a chance to go for something vital. This happened in Iraq. A sketchy asshole I used to hang out with put a gun to my head once because I wanted to bail on waiting for weed from his friend. I was thinking that if I showed an ounce of fear, he'd not only win but be more likely to pull the trigger. I didn't think he'd do it, but I was aware it could have been the end for me. So I held it together and didn't cower like he wanted. He backed off. The guy's a total psychotic dick. He's a police officer now. Don't know if it counts as held, but some guy assaulted me with a knife on the street as I was going back home from the convenience store. It was pretty late so there weren't many people around. Instead of feeling afraid or shocked, I felt offended. So offended that I got violent and started throwing my groceries at the guy. After getting hit with a 2LT milk box in the face, the guy dropped the knife and took off. And in the end I was there in the middle of the street with my groceries ruined and my pride harmed. The store I worked at was robbed. And my brain just kinda stopped. I gave him my stuff when he asked. And didn't make any sudden moves. Didn't consider stopping them. Or taking action to protect myself. Boss gave them the register. They took what they wanted and ran, leaving a comical trail of $1 behind them. Cops came. I gave a statement. Boss offered to buy me a replacement phone. I was totally calm/mildly annoyed the whole time. When I got to the back room almost an hour later, finally alone and quiet, I started crying. Nobody was shot. My stuff was getting replaced. And there I am sobbing in the corner. It's completely changed the way I see movies where something horribly traumatic happens to the protagonist. But they beat the bad guy so it's all smiles at the end. Doesn't matter if you win. You gotta let that speep out or it will haunt you forever. He had just raped me. Drew a gun on me. I asked him to pull the trigger. Release was all that was on my mind. Oblivion. He had abused me for 6 months. And even in that moment, he did the exact opposite of what I'd asked him to do. I genuinely felt nothing at that point. Hopefully that guy is dead or suffering. Animals like that need to be put down. Sitting in a friend's living room in my younger days when 2 guys just open the door and walk in like they live there. The first indication something was wrong sad when my friend stood up and said, "What the f***?" As the guys were raising their arms I noticed the pistols. One of the guys waked my friend into his bedroom to get whatever he had in there while the other held us at gunpoint and got everyone else's wallets. I remember thinking I'll never be caught without a gun again if I live through this. But I was the calmest of the bunch, I think. Another guy was nervously talking. One was shaking so bad he dropped his wallet and the last just kept telling the guy, "I'm cool. Man. I'm cool. Man." They eventually just took our stuff and left. The adrenaline and anger kicked in later. I was young. 8 or so. Mid-90s. Traveling through Mexico with my mother and her boyfriend who looked like a drug runner but was a stone-cold sober former addict. We were stopped at a checkpoint where the police were looking for drugs. They tore our truck apart and it became obvious that they wanted to either find something or find a bribe. I was held off to the side by a man with a gun held to me while they worked out the terms of the bribe. Ultimately I was released. But I was terrified. In the mind of a child though, my mom's voice telling me it'll be okay was louder than the fear. I was scared. But reassured. Yeah, no. Mom's got my back. I don't remember what I was thinking so much as the way it felt. But it was like 20 years ago. I could have just forgotten. I got stabbed once. Leading up to it I was a young and dumb unmedicated manic depressive tough guy in my own neighborhood. I remember thinking I wish a mother peeper would, then he did. My last words could have been, "What are you going to do? Stab me? For 10 rand?" I was very sure he wasn't going to. It made me very angry when he did. I grew up in one of the worst neighborhoods of South Africa. Had knives pulled with ill intention many times on myself. I've brandished weapons many times on others. It eventually becomes kind of a joke. If the person hasn't killed anyone before, they aren't likely about to start now. The sheer volume of incidents makes you fall into that critically faulted safe zone where you get angry for people having the gall to threaten you. It goes wrong sometimes. Luckily only once for me. Walked away with a punctured lung and a new knife. Left the country not long after. My buddy in high school worked the overnight shift at a gas station. He had to buzz customers in. One day a suspicious-looking guy tried to come in. My buddy said, "Sorry. I can't help you, you're not buying gas." The guy pulled out a gun and was banging on the door with it, yelling, "Speep like open this beeping door or I'll blow your head off." In that moment, my buddy thought if he opened the door, he'd get into a speep load of trouble. Plus the glass must be bulletproof. Right? So the guy eventually left. Cops eventually came and after reviewing the CCTV, they gave him a pretty good interrogation. Specifically, they wanted to know how he could look at this guy waving a gun and just shake his head at him. Secondly, why was he eating chips out of an open bag on the counter the whole time? When he told them he figured the glass was bulletproof, they laughed and said it definitely was not. He's pretty sure the cops thought maybe he was in on it and got cold feet because who has the stones to say no to a guy with a gun?